Hello.
Hi,
How
Bob.
you doing? You
I'm
good,
doing
bud?
great. Thank you. Yeah, I'm
Awesome.
here.
We'll give Brian and Keith and Bob and Alicia and Savannah, and there's some more people kind of cascading into the room, as tends to happen right when we kick this thing off at the top of the hour.
Yep.
Chase, good to see you. Hello, Elliot. Here they come. They're flooding in. Hunter Bowden, what's happening, bub? All right.
What
Good
what are
morning,
we covering today, Bob?
Kevin. I think we're going to dive in and talk about how to 10x our seller leads. And I'm going to share my screen with you guys for just a second here. Let's come in here and Kevin, you give me a thumbs up if you see my screen right now.
I see
Cool.
it. I don't see the.
I should have put your beautiful face on here, Kevin. I'm a
Don't worry about it.
total hog of the spotlight. I
It's all
apologize.
good.
I didn't
Keep
know
it.
for sure if you were going to be here, but I'm glad that you're here to kind of kick some of these ideas back and forth with me. Guys,
You bet.
what I'd like to do today, now some of you guys are Brivity clients. There's a few folks on here that are not. And so we're going to talk about some of the tools that we have inside of Brivity to really help you find more sellers in your life, not just more seller leads. And in fact, many of the things that we're going to cover and talk about today, Kevin, are actually things where it's like this person probably already exists in your world. You just need to go kind of float them up out of the database, right? A lot of us, we've been doing this for a while. We've been packing leads around for 5 years, Kevin, or 7. Kevin, how long have you been an agent?
I've been an agent since, gosh, 2014. Don't make me do math, but
All
yeah,
right, 9 years. So Kevin, I guarantee
9 years.
Kevin's got a lead or two in his Brivity that came into his world 8 or 9 years ago or 7 years ago. Now, Kevin
Right?
uses all of these tools at a high level for his own little business down there in Austin, Texas. So I don't know that I'm going to teach you anything here, Kevin, but maybe you can reinforce how some of these things are actually a benefit to you, right?
I always learn something, Bob.
Love it.
Always.
All right, so let's just jump in here. We're going to cover some different tools that Brivity has. Make sure you guys are leveraging them at the highest level. If you're not a Brivity client, man, I got my fingers crossed that whatever system you have has similar tools, or maybe you want to check out what we offer at Brivity. So let's come in first. This very first tool, Kevin, my mom is an agent. She's a one of Ben Kinney's partners in place.
Yep.
She calls these, Kevin, her come list me emails. And our market reports, here's the way I think about these, Kevin. We have a database. Everybody on this call has a database, and we want to be the person that the people in that database think of when they think real estate.
Yep.
And far too often, what happens is somebody in your database drives in, they're coming home from work, Kevin, tomorrow, right? Tonight they're driving into Austin, Texas. They're pulling into a neighborhood that Kevin would absolutely list their house in. And they see somebody else's house in that neighborhood, Kevin, either for sale or it's been for sale for a while. And now they see a sold sign out on it.
Yep. Yep.
And 99 times out of 100, that person's not going to spend more than the next half hour to figure out what's it listed for, what did it sell for. They're going to go seek that information out. And the question becomes, where do they go? Where do they go? Like, do your clients in your database come to you to figure out what their neighbor's house sold for? Or do they go to Zillow? Do they go to Google, right? Do they go to some other agent? Do they call that listing agent on the sign and say, hey, I saw you listed that house in my neighborhood. What did it end up selling for? Like,
Yeah.
if we're not delivering that data to them weekly, every other week, at the least once a month, Kevin, and we don't have a tool, they can go and pull it up anytime they wanted. They're going to go find that information somewhere else. And so we've got this market report tool. If you're a Brivity client today, I would assume you got some people on it. What I would tell you is if you're a Brivity client today, go into your database, go find that column in the lead index that shows when they've been opening those market reports, Kevin, and viewing them, and click right there. And that'll float to you all the people in your world, right, that might need a call from you today.
This is the highest opened email in real estate, really just in our industry.
Yeah.
It's getting super high open rate. I call this the Aunt Martha report. And I call it that, right? Yeah, because your Aunt Martha knows everybody in the neighborhood. They know what everybody's doing, right? And this gives us an opportunity to send Aunt Martha a report, because Aunt Martha forgot we're in real estate, either because she thinks we're too busy, we can't help her or friends, or that we're just not doing it at all because she never hears from us about it. So this gives us an opportunity to stay in contact with somebody, give them information, connect with them monthly. And gosh, you made your mom really happy because you're talking to Aunt Martha.
The Aunt Martha report. I love that. So here's the action item. Like, if you're a Brivity client today, go get every single person in the database with an email and a physical address on one of these reports. And here's maybe like an extra secret. Some of you guys that are on this call, you have a team, or over the years, you've had a team. And there's a decent chance that somebody on your team, one agent one day, right? Or maybe that agent for an entire year didn't treat your leads very well, Kevin. They trashed a whole bunch of leads. Some of the data, Kevin, you and I both work with a lot of teams that have these big databases. It's almost every team we come across, if they've been in business for any amount of time and had any kind of turnover in their agent world, there's old leads in your trash and your inactive and your archived buckets that have emails and addresses. And in our world, we just set them up on our market report. Even if 3 years ago, Kevin, they told some agent on our team, I don't need anything, I don't want anything, you don't need to call me. They're going to get a market report from us because we know that even though they didn't want to talk to us 3 years ago, they still care about what their neighbor's house are selling for because it's a direct reflection on the value of their home. So action item, everybody on a market report, if they have an email and an address in our world, we're going to make sure that they're being educated by us. I heard a fascinating kind of analogy the other day, Kevin, actually last week when we were at Built, how somebody said one of the things that ends up happening when I meet with somebody who's been receiving these market reports for a while is these like, if you've ever been in a doctor's office, Kevin, like, we're old enough that like, you remember going in as kids to the doctor. When that doctor used to walk in, the stethoscope, that stethoscope that would hang around their neck was like the indicator to me that like, okay, the professional has entered the room, right?
Yeah.
This market report really is your stethoscope, right? It's that thing that shows them that, hey, Kevin knows what's going on in this market. Look at this. Every time a house sells near me, he's got it on his little report that he sends out to me. So what is your stethoscope? What's that thing you're using to showcase to the people that are in that database already that like, I'm the person. Everybody gets one of these. My mom calls them to come list me emails. Kevin calls them her Aunt Martha. I love it. I love it. All right. One of the next tools that we should talk about is the Brivity CMA tool. So we have the ability inside of Brivity. We are tapped into your MLS. We can go in and we're pulling all the actives, pendings, and solds, and you guys can use the Brivity CMA tool to create a CMA. And I heard, it's probably been about a year now, one of the most fascinating strategies that I've ever heard. We have a team in our world that every day, each agent on their team, Kevin, sends one CMA a day to somebody in that database. Could be somebody that looked at their market report recently. Could be somebody we sold their house 5 years ago and just, we haven't done a really great job following up with them. And so we want to like kind of add some value to their world and show them like all the equity that they've earned in that house over the last 5 years. Sometimes they're just blindly picking, maybe it's somebody that's been on the website looking at properties, up in the $1 million price range, and we've got their address in there. We know they live in a $600,000 or a $700,000 house today, right? We want to show them what they could sell their house for so they could get towards that $1 million property that we've been seeing them on the website. But here's where I think the real, Kevin, I'm a firm believer that like the more specific knowledge we acquire in whatever field we're in, the more we'll earn ultimately in income.
Yeah.
This is a Naval concept. There's a guy named Naval. He's a famous podcaster, Silicon Valley investor. He talks about this idea. Think about this. Let's say you're an agent, or you have agents on your team who are relatively newer in the industry. Let's say this year, they're going to kill it in their first year, Kevin. They're going to list 12 houses. They'd probably end up going on about 15 to 18 appointments. Let's say they went on 18 appointments, right? They got 12 people to list with them. Does that mean like all year they did 18 CMAs? For most people, the answer is yeah. Like they basically do a CMA when I go out and I'm going to have a listing appointment with somebody, Kevin. And so that agent they probably got 18 reps on creating a CMA all year. So one of our teams, one of our place partners, that Mariana and Derek Wagner in Colorado Springs, Colorado, they've got 5 agents on their team. There's 7 of them. They pump out 7 CMAs a day, 1 each. But think about this. Now, this is a team that shows they're good at what they do. They sell a couple hundred houses a year. They show up every day, Kevin, right?
Yeah.
Let's just say they were only going to do this 4 days a week, and they were going to take off 8 weeks this year. So they were going to do 40 weeks, 4 days. All of a sudden, that agent got 160 reps on creating a CMA versus the average agent who's out there getting, 15 to 18 reps
18, yeah,
on a CMA. So this is a great tool to, now if it took us 45 minutes or an hour to do every one of our CMAs, maybe not practical. But if you get good at the Brivity CMA tool, you can crank a CMA out in 8 or 10 minutes, 15. Maybe you're really digging in on that thing, 20 or 25.
And most of the work's done for us, right? And most of the work's done for you. It builds it in there. It shows you all the listings that are available, that have been pending, or maybe that are sold.
It'll pull in, it'll crunch the numbers and kind of give you a suggested price. We use this concept in our world when we do a listing presentation called range pricing, where we'll tell them we think this thing's going to sell somewhere between this price and this price. And there's a whole, you guys could go watch a video on Ben Kinney breaking down the way that we do a listing presentation, but super valuable tool as much as anything, I think, to help our agents get reps on doing the CMA, because that the comparative market analysis that you're doing, comparative, I don't know what that thing is, one of those skills that the more you hone that skill, Kevin, right, the higher that our income potential goes.
Great.
All right. Next up, these seller lead capture pages. Now, there's 2 ways to think about this in our business, Kevin. The first way would be, they're not in my database today. I'm going to use this page as some bait to get them into my database, right? We have a team here. If you said, look, I don't want to can you just make seller leads appear in my database? Yes, we can do that at Brivity, right? Amy Garish, our team at Brivity, can leverage these types of pages that you have on your website and go out and take a budget and go spend it on Google pay-per-click or Facebook advertising and drive people to this page, sellers, get them to raise their hand. The fascinating, Kevin, you heard this from Amy a couple weeks ago. Right now, there's this crazy time, and I've been doing this for 21 years, Kevin. We've never seen this before. In a lot of markets right now, seller leads are more affordable than buyer leads.
Yeah.
The buyer demand has almost totally dried up with interest rates up over 7%, right? There's not a ton of people out there looking for houses like as their starting point into the market. That's generally in normal times what happens is people go, I would think about buying a house. Let's go start looking for what that might be. What's actually happening right now, though, is so many people are kind of feeling locked into their house that they're not starting by going out and saying, hey, let me go look for listings. They're actually starting by trying to understand how much equity they have in their own home. Yeah. That's more important than ever right now because of interest rates being high. They need to know, like, how much am I going to be able to bring to the table for that next house that I want to go buy? And so seller leads across the entire country right now, we're seeing seller leads down by about 29% cost-wise over the same time last year.
Yeah, not only that, I think media, the media is also getting people to be curious about it because they get such different information from all of these different sources. And we need to continue to show up as the source with the right information. This is one great way of starting that conversation.
That's right. How many people out there, like you, if you pay any attention to the news, like once a week, you're going to come across an article that swears that real estate prices are about to fall off the edge of a cliff, right? And there's a lot of uncertainty in the market, and uncertainty can be filled by us having answers or a way to at least get into conversation with somebody so that we can give them better data than, the clickbait headlines that the news is giving them. Now, in this bucket right here, when we're talking about seller lead capture, first off, if you have a Brivity site, you could make as many variations of this page as you wanted. For example, up in Bellingham, where Ben Kinney's team sells real estate, they have a generic one that looks just like this. They've also got one that says, "What's your Blaine home worth?" And that one has a picture of the Peace Arch, which is kind of a famous icon landmark in Blaine, Washington. They've got one for Bellingham. "What's your Bellingham home worth?" It's got a picture on it of Bellingham Bay, right? They've got one for Linden. That one's got a picture of, I don't know what the heck's going, cow fields or something out in Linden. But they make one of these pages for each one of the potential markets that they might be trying to target, so that when somebody in Blaine lands on that page, they go, okay, this guy probably knows what's going on here in Blaine. At least he knows the Peace Arch is there, right? Like it feels more like theirs. They do one of these for their past clients. They got one that's got a picture of the team on it, and it says, "Hey, you bought a house with us in the past. Curious what it's worth today?" So we can create a variety of these. Now, what most people do is they just have this one, which comes by default. If you have Brivity, you have this home value page. It's on your website at yourwebsite.com/home value. You'd have this page. Kevin, 90% of the teams in our world, they just sit on their hands and hope somebody finds this page. Now, about 9% of our teams, Kevin, have a budget where they're giving our team $500 a month, and we're going out and driving people to this page to generate seller leads for them.
Yep.
1% of people, Kevin, have realized, you know what? I got a whole bunch of leads in my database today. What if I was to leverage those home value pages and drive those back at the people that are already in this database, letting them know, hey, I can show you what your house is worth. Are you curious? Have you been reading the stuff in the news? So we created a couple of emails here. I'm going to give you guys a way to easily get these, even if you're not a Brivity client or you are a Brivity client. In just a second, there's a QR code that you're going to be able to shoot on your screen right here to go grab both of these emails. This is the first one. And when we build it into Brivity properly, we could send this to 50 or 100 or 500 people, Kevin, and it would fill their name in. Right now, we'd want to enter the link back to our home value page. So when they got this, if they're like, you know what, I'm kind of curious what my house is worth. Now, these are people that live in our database already, but we have a couple teams that every day they send this email to 50 individuals. They just find 50 people in the database. Maybe they haven't heard from us for a while, whatever it is, and they send this email. Each day, they get 1 or 2 people raising their hand and filling out that thing and saying, yeah, I'm curious what my house is worth. Somebody already in my database who's becoming a higher hand raiser. That's what we're looking for here. There's a second one that we can send to people where we have their address in the database. So if we have an email and an address for them, they're those same people that we should have on a market report. But if we haven't connected with them for a while, Kevin, this is an email that we'll send. And here's why this one's powerful, because in the headline, in the subject line of the email, we actually use a placeholder to plant their address in there. And look, I don't know why, Chip Hodgkins, this is the case, but for whatever reason, when somebody's email or address is in the subject line of the email, those get really high open rates.
Oh, yeah. I could see that.
Right? I tell the joke, Kevin, I may or may not have ducked and dodged the IRS in my 20s, but let's just say I had. I was always looking for somebody sending me like whenever I see my address, I'm like, why do they know my address? Like, who is this? Right? Like, what? This is a really, really powerful email.
I think what's most powerful about those is the re-engagement opportunities. The opportunities to re-engage with people. I mean, you wouldn't send your friends and your family, do you still own, but you would send them that first one saying, listen, I know that you're curious about what's happening in this market. I have some information for you. Just do this simple step. You already know me. You know my website. You already trust me. So when they get to those places and they fill out that information, they're going to feel more comfortable getting to that next step.
Love it. Yeah, they know us, right? Some of them in our database, they don't necessarily know us, but our name's it's not the first time they've ever seen it. They're getting that market report from us already, right? Let's give them the opportunity to raise their hand a little bit higher and say, you know what? I am curious what my house is worth right now. Now, shoot that QR code. There's a little Google Doc where you guys can have both of those emails, and you could copy and paste them in as email templates inside of your own Brivity. Again, if you're not leveraging that home value tool into your database today, I think you're missing opportunities to get people in there to raise their hand. All right, so we got Facebook leads, and there's two ways that we have a tool that if you're a Brivity client, you guys can go in and just run your own Facebook seller ads. You can use that home value page as a landing on it. Pretty simple process of going in and setting that up. Or if you're like, you know what, I don't want to manage this. I just want to give Brivity the budget, let them go drive these leads. We can do that as well. In addition to that, what we've started doing is this kind of home value targeting concept. So it's like, sure, you might be sending emails, but wouldn't it be cool if you said, you know what, I just want to give the team a budget. I want to have them go and target people already in my database, try to get them to raise their hand. And so what we can do is it's called retargeting. We can go look at anybody. We could just take the people in your database that have an email address and a physical address. So we're like pretty sure they live in those houses. And we could just target them with seller messaging from you. Curious what your house is worth, the 7 mistakes to avoid if you're thinking about listing soon, right? There's a variety of campaigns that our team has built out here that we can use to target people in your database that might be good potential seller prospects in the future. And for a lot of our teams, that's just, look, if we have their address, Kevin, we think they live in that place, we're targeting them to try to get them to raise their hand through that kind of constant hum of our advertising being all throughout their feeds on Facebook or Instagram or any of the different apps that advertising platform serves. And a lot of the ads that all the ads you guys see are generally coming from Facebook or Facebook or Google, right? So a lot of the apps that you play in, like when we run ads in the Facebook environment, they end up on the apps that people are using, that kind of thing. There's another kind of concept here, and this is on the Google side of things, where we can do this kind of display network advertising, where it's just like, we take some segment of your database. Again, maybe it's something like we have their email and we have their phone number or their address. And then we just go out, Kevin, and we plant your marketing message, and our team will work with you. And we even have designers if you wanted us to go create the actual collateral of what those display ads will look like. And we just saturate their experience. Now, they're going to think at the end of the day, Kevin, like, holy crap, Kevin Weber must spend friggin' $1 million on advertising. Like, I go to Forbes, he's there. I go to CNN, he's there. You know, my crazy uncle goes to whatever random website, Kevin's there, and he's on my website. Like, doesn't matter, right? Wherever they go, and it's not because Kevin's spending $1 million. It's because Kevin's targeting that one person very specifically, and we're following them around the internet with Kevin's messaging.
You know, it's really cool, Bob, is that I work with a lot of agents that use our Brivity platform, and a lot of them are also doing this branding campaign. And if I log into their website or I'm doing testing and I go in there, I'm on Google, I'm doing stuff, and all of a sudden I see they're advertising in other states, right? It doesn't matter where they are. If I'm engaging with them, they're engaging back. It's very cool.
Yeah. And again, you know what's going on there, so you're not surprised that you saw that agent after you just been on their website.
No.
But a lot of consumers are like, wait, what? Oh my gosh, I see this guy everywhere now, right? I went to his website once, or I opened his market report one time, and now, God, he must be the expert. Like, he spends $1 million, it looks like. You're not actually spending $1 million. Some of these campaigns can be run for as little as a couple $100. Okay. So this is here's what we've found, Kevin. Across the United States, 65% of people own the house that they live in. Right? That's the national home ownership rate. In your area, it could be a little bit higher, could be a little bit lower, but it is somewhere between about 60 and 70%. Okay, which means if we have people in this database that aren't getting a listing alert from us, 65% of them live somewhere. And so what we've done is we are super aggressive we almost send listing alerts to everybody and anybody that might be in this database. including, by the way, people like my sphere and my past clients. And a lot of people say, why would I send? I just helped them buy a house 2 years ago. They told me they're going to live there for the next 10 years. Why would I send them? If you were really somebody's real estate advisor, like I think we all want to be in this position with our clients in our sphere where we are the person they go to and think about and entrust with all of their real estate secrets and desires, right? If that's the case, don't you want to know what the desires and the secrets are of the people that live in their house right now and they're not going to buy this year, but maybe we could turn that reticular activator on for that next thing they want to buy. Kevin, that might be a year from now. It might be 5 years from now. I'll give you an example of this. So my wife and I recently bought an investment property. We started looking for it about 4 years ago. We spent over 3 years just kind of looking for it. Now, I know a lot of agents. My mom's a great one, right? But she, like, the day that we started thinking about it, right? Now, I had a good enough relationship with my agent. I reached out to her and I said, hey, we're probably not going to buy anything for a while, but we want to eventually buy a place around here on a lake, right? Under 500,000. We needed to have at least 2 bedrooms. And she just started sending us those years before we were ever actually ready to buy it. But like, what is your past client's next house? They're going to live in this one for 5 years. What's the next one? Can we start to get them thinking about it, Kevin? And so we're constantly trying to use listing alerts to get people thinking about the next house. Now, if I had a lead that had just come to my website, Kevin, I was going to start sending them alerts, I'd send those daily. If I had somebody in my sphere or maybe a past client that I wanted to give that aspirational home listing alert for, I'd do it once a week. I would send it every day, Kevin, right? I'd send it once a week.
Like now, what the listing, I'm sorry, go ahead. I was going to say what the listing alerts are really good at, Bob, are driving traffic back to your website. So anybody and everybody wants to introduce or reintroduce their database to their website. Listing alerts are the best way to do that. And as you mentioned, it shows the expertise and it gives you an opportunity to feed them their dreams, right? And further opportunities. A buyer sometimes doesn't even realize they're a buyer until that perfect home at the perfect price and the perfect location shows up in front of them. And that's what listing alerts are really good at.
That's right. Now think about this. Let's say you're like, I'm not going to send them a listing alert. I don't care enough to know what their next dream house is going to be, right? Okay, fine. So they're not getting anything from you. And then one day they wake up and they're like, you know what? I think we should go find that next dream house. Where are they going to go? Yeah. It's not going to be to your website. It's going to be to Zillow. They're going to end up in a lead in somebody else's database. They're going to go to Google. They're going to go to, like, the likelihood that they will wake up, a year from now and go, you know what? I should go to Kevin's website and start looking for that dream house on the lake. Pretty low probability, right? So listing alerts, we just are leveraging them on everybody and anybody. And sometimes it's not because we think they're looking to buy that house tomorrow, Kevin. Sometimes it's because we want to set that dream out in front of them.
Yeah.
Reverse prospecting in your database. So one of the so you've got there's these concepts in Brivity where you can go in there and you can go look up and say, show me everybody that's been on my website and they've looked at properties in the 800 to $1 million price range, right? Here's where we use this kind of as it relates to trying to find somebody that might be thinking about listing their house. Our teams are constantly going in and looking specifically for individuals that are looking in move up price points in our markets. Okay, so Desiree Phelps, if let's say you're in Bellingham, Washington, first time home buyer price points in Bellingham are about 400,000 to 500,000. If somebody's looking in that 600,000 to 700,000 range, there's a decent chance they own, Kevin, a $400,000 property or 450, right?
Yeah.
So we are constantly going in and really zeroing in on those people. Couple things that we're trying to do there. And Jillian Smith, I'll just tell you, when we go, most databases that Kevin and I go into, when we look at the people that have been on the website, a lot of those people end up in statuses like hot, watch, and nurture, Harry, right? We've talked to them before. But I think, Kevin, you share this same kind of shock. It's not shock. Like I get it somewhat, but I always think, wow, we had 50 people that have been on our website in the last week. We've talked to, right? 40 of those are in a hot wash or nurture, but of those 40, we only know where 5 of them live. Like, what? If I got somebody looking in a move up price point, especially if they had a phone number that had an area code in my area and I didn't know where they'd live, but I'd talked to them before, you can make damn sure the next time I call them, I'm going to ask them where they live. Why? Because then I can get them on one of those market reports, right? Now I know where their house is at. Next week, maybe in my CMA a day, they're the person that gets a CMA from me. Like all of these like little stethoscope type things that prove to them that we're the expert. A lot of times they're predicated on us just asking the question, hey, I noticed you're looking at $800,000 houses here in Bellingham. Do you live somewhere here in the area right now? Oh, you do? Awesome. Would it be of value to you if I set you up to get a report on what's happening right in your area of town? I can show you what your neighbors' houses are selling for. You can even go and look at the pictures of them if you want.
They don't understand our expertise and see that sometimes we have specialties, but that doesn't limit us, right? We don't wear badges that say listing agent, buying agent. They don't know that they can get both of those services from us a lot of times until we introduce that to them.
So true. Like, think about this, Kevin. You could have somebody in your website right now that's like, all right, like we're definitely going to work with Hunter Bowden, right? This kid's smart. He's been following up with us the whole time. We're going to buy this $570,000 house with him. And Hunter doesn't even think to ask him where they live. And they don't even think to ask Hunter if he could list their house because they're just going to call the lady. They see these signs in their neighborhood all the time. They think that's the lady that's the only lady that lists houses in our neighborhood is the lady we see her signs. They don't even know Hunter could list their house. I think we take a lot for granted on what people know about what we do, I think. So if you've got people in your database that are looking at properties in move up price points, especially if you've talked to them in the past, next time you talk to them, ask them where they live. Ask them where they live. All right. Sometimes, well, not sometimes, always, Kevin, always, if we talk to more people versus less, we have a higher likelihood of finding somebody that's thinking about listing their house for sale. Like in many ways, real estate can be boiled down to a numbers game. Yep. In fact, we know our numbers pretty well at Place, Ben Kinney's business. We know for every 151 people we call, we're going to talk to 30, and we can find one appointment in every 30 conversations that we have. Those are just our numbers average across our entire network of, a couple thousand agents, right?
Yep.
This tool right here, I believe, inside of Brivity is the single most secret weapon. When people figure out how to leverage this, they can literally transform not just their business, but their life. Like, I had a lady on stage last week at Build How. Her name's Katie Sentinella, and she's my golden child. And if any of you guys have ever been in a room with me, I don't go more than 15 minutes without saying Katie Sentinella. But like, I had her up on stage. I was interviewing her about using the dialer, and I'm like, just give me some mindset behind why you decided to really adopt that dialer. And here's what she said. She said, well, Bob, I'm a little bit ADD. Like, I'm easily distracted. And so for me, if I'm going to go in and sit down and focus on my job, and by the way, the number one job, Holly, of a real estate agent is prospecting. Like, I know that you wear a lot of hats. Jody Lee, on any given day, you could walk into your office, right? And there's 15 things that are being asked of you. You need to become a marketer, and you need to be a stager, and you need to be a home inspector, and you need all these things, right? And somebody's asking you, like, how much do those blinds cost? And you're like, I'm not the Home Depot blinds person, but I'll figure out.
Sometimes you're a psychiatrist.
Oh, marriage counselor. Like, how many of you guys have played marriage counselor, right? Like, yeah. But here's the deal. All the things we get to do in real estate are predicated on the fact we have people to do them with. All the jobs you get to do require us to have somebody to do them with. So your number one job is prospector. And this single tool right here has transformed lives of Brivity users. Like, my mom is a personal example of somebody that used the dialer at a high level. She did 79 transactions that first year in business. Katie Sentinella consistently is doing 55, 58 deals a year. on the back of really an hour and a half of focused time on the dialer. Because when you make calls with this, and I guarantee half you guys that are listening to this are probably on your phone right now, right? The other half of you have it within arm's reach. There's probably one of you that's just now looking around like, I don't know where my phone is, and you're panicking, right? You're like, where the hell is it? Where'd my phone go? But this thing is ripe for distraction. If I'm going to make 10 calls into my business, Kevin, I know me. I'm going to make one, then I'm going to be like, ooh, I got a text message. Who's that from? Ooh, Z Galleria. They got a sale going on. Then I'm going to make another call, and then I've got a Facebook message, and then I've got, right, like an email came in. And then there's a million reasons to not make the next call in our business. We have, in our place world, there's 120 agents that make 1,000 dials a month into their business. Every single one of them uses a dialer. Every single one. When you manually log your calls, what we see is this cap around about 400 calls. And those people are machines, by the way, the folks in making 400 manually logged calls and logging them all in their database.
Yeah.
The gap between them and the people that figure out how to use this is extensive. It's extensive, and it's month over month. And, you know, somebody like a Katie who's consistently getting her 1,200 calls in, she's getting 4 times as many at bats as the person logging manually 400. She's getting 4 times, she's hearing 4 times as many objections. She's, you know, hearing 4 times as many reflex no's. She's getting 4 times as much practice every single month. And that compounds over a long period of time to make her a much better person on the phones. And we know that talking to them on the phone is ultimately going to turn them into an appointment with us. All right, now eventually we get a listing. The reason we built Brivity in the very beginning, before Ben ever sold it to anybody, he built it literally to manage transactions in his own business. And the reason for that, Jody, when you go out to a listing appointment, right? It used to be in the beginning of Ben's business. He went out to the listing appointment. He made the promises, and then him and Jolene came home and delivered on those promises. But once he had agents in his world and he was out making promises, or they were out making promises with his name on those promises, he had to make sure that he had, Kevin, a really kind of concise way to deliver on those promises. Today, we call those smart transaction auto plans, right? We can, inside of a transaction, we can detail out all the promises that we made to people. And then we can make sure as we check them off that they get notified that those promises were delivered on. Here's why I think this leads to, you know, a bigger business. By the way, when we originally built this, the very first iteration, it was just a checklist for us to keep track of the promises and make sure we were delivering on them. But what we quickly realized, and look, I don't look at this portion of the NAR home buyer and seller profile. I haven't for a couple of years now. The number one complaint back in 2009, 10, 11, when Ben was building this thing in the very beginning of his business, from people that sold their house was there wasn't much communication. Like, they came out and took the listing, and I wasn't really sure what they were doing for those 3 weeks before we finally got that offer. And so not only does Brivity allow you to kind of keep track of all your problems, it actually shows the client, right? There's a portal on the other side. There's a daily or weekly email, depending on how frequently you want it to go out, that actually shows them, here's all the stuff we're doing. Here's all the places we've marketed it. Here's all the marketing collateral we've built using Brivity Marketer. Here's, you know, the things that we told you we were going to do that we did get done. Now, this is important, I think, for this reason. I'm going to come over here. I'm going to pop out of this full deal. I'm going to take you guys in here for just a second to this NAR home buyer and seller profile that I'm talking about. Last year, this is on the seller side. Okay. This is home selling. So when somebody was selling their house last year, 41% of them were referred by a neighbor, friend, or relative. They were referred by that person you just sold their house last month or 6 months ago. Now, you've got them on a market report, so you're always never too far away from top of mind. But one of the main reasons people refer you is because they had a really awesome experience with you last time, Kevin. And if the number one complaint of sellers in the past has been, I didn't get very good communication from my agents, if we can make sure that your seller got awesome communication from you, they're much, much more likely to refer you to a friend, neighbor, or relative.
I think somewhere in here it says that that was the number one thing that sellers wanted from an agent was communication.
Yep. When as you roll through the different by the way, I should slap this in chat. To me, this is a
Yeah, that's a good
Bible
one.
for
So great.
it's a Bible. Like there's a lot of really good data, and the my favorite part is it's all in charts and graphs. So I don't have to read a ton. I can just kind of visually inspect what the key takeaway is. One of the key takeaways is when we do an awesome job for people, they refer us, and that's where a big chunk of the business every year comes from, no matter what kind of business you run. Okay, back here, got a couple more, and then we'll get you guys out of here. So quickly. So if you're a Brivity client today, you have Quickly. It's our text to lead service. And it's one of the last things that a lot of teams get deployed, right? There is that whole, I got to go get some signs made for it. By the way, when you're doing signs, and I need to, we don't, so this kind of acts like it's a listing sign. The way we actually do our riders is this is like an 18 by 24 that stakes in the ground. So we got our main listing sign, Kevin, just like we'd always have. It's got our phone number on it. And then we'll use this other kind of stake in the ground Quickly sign, just like you'd see here. It says, to get the current price and see all the pictures, text Dream Key, I think is your keyword down there in Austin,
That's right.
Kevin, right? Or text Ben Kinney or text BKT South or whatever your keyword is. Now, here's why I'm talking about this on the seller side. This is like, I have a listing. Every time you take a listing, the neighbors are watching. Okay. In fact, so in my mom's business with her Quickly leads, when they get one in 13 of their Quickly leads turn into a signed contract in the next 60 days. So the leads themselves the buyer leads that you get from Quickly are pretty good. But here's the thing, 1 in 3 of those contracts is actually a seller. And so what my mom tells me is when you have a new listing and I drop it in, especially when it's in a neighborhood, right? That first day or two, the leads often tend to be from neighbors.
Yep.
Right? What they list it for. They're really aggressive with those leads. When they get those leads that first day or two on the phone, they're always asking the question. People normally text for 1 or 2 reasons. They're curious of what this house is listed at, or they live in the neighborhood and they're curious what their own home might be worth based on what this new listing was listed at. Which one are you? And in that first day or two, it tends to be people that live in the neighborhood. Why? Because they always walk their dog around the neighborhood, and now there's a nude for sale sign, and they're like, oh, wait, I can text to get info about this, and they do it.
First day or two, heck, it's usually the first couple of hours as soon as you put that Quickly sign out. Neighbors are walking by, biking by. Yeah,
driving
it's
home
fast.
From work. Yeah.
Coming home from work. It's fast.
So, now, look, you'll get Quickly leads a week from now on some buyer that was driving through the neighborhood, or they saw it listed and they wanted to just drive by and see the street view of it, right? But the sellers in that neighborhood, the people that are thinking, I might list my house soon too, they want to know what the neighbor's house listed for. And so this is if you had flyers out there, what do they get to do, Kevin? They just roll up, grab the flyer. They don't have to call you. They don't have to text you. They don't give you any information. They just walk off and they know what it's listed for now. We use these as a way to basically trade that flyer for their cell phone number. Some of the best leads in real estate are somebody that was a neighbor who's interested in what you just listed their neighbor's house for, or even buyers that come through here. Again, though, any buyer lead we get out of this thing, 65% of the time, Kevin, they have a house, and most of them are going to sell that one before they go to the next one. Okay, last thing that we'll talk about here really quick is Brivity Marketer. Along the same lines of every listing is kind of a showcase for your next potential listing. I think all the marketing we do is also a showcase for how professional our business is. And one of the reasons Ben built Brivity Marketer as his organization continues to grow, right? And now he partners with 270 teams at Place. We wanted to make sure that we had really consistent approach to the visual design of our marketing. We wanted it to look beautiful. We wanted it to not be busy, and we wanted the color schemes to be on point. Brivity Marketer allows you to do all of that to make sure you have really consistent branding, especially if you run a team, right? You run a team and one agent's out there because they're really awesome at Canva doing all these beautiful designs, and the other agent, they barely ever post anything because they're embarrassed because they don't even know how to make anything for themselves. Marketer gives them all a chance to be on level playing field. What can you do inside of Brivity Marketer? You can do direct mail marketing, right? So we have automated campaigns, Kevin. Every time I take a listing, I can send 200 postcards out to all of the people nearby. And we've got an algorithm where we wouldn't just send it to all the 200 closest houses. We'd actually send it, Kevin, to the guy 10 doors down that's lived there for 10 years, because he's statistically getting really close to selling his house. But we would not send it to the neighbor who just bought their house 6 months ago, because they're thinking about what kind of new couches they're going to buy, not when they're going to sell their house next. So our direct mail marketing is actually targeted. We use an algorithm to figure out who's the best person to get this, not just just anybody who could get it. We've also got flyers in there, so you guys can create open house flyers, just listed flyers. Hopefully you're not creating flyers to go put out in front of your listing on the sign. You should be using Quickly for that. But open house QR codes, right? If we wanted somebody to shoot a QR code in order to be able to register when they come into our open house, those are available inside of Brivity Marketer. There's hundreds of templates around social media type posting. If you wanted to do stories or post things to LinkedIn or Instagram or Facebook, there's just a massive number of templates in there for that. There's videos. Yeah, we can easily create quick little videos out of our listings. And the cool thing about Marketer, it's connected up to there's Facebook ads. You guys can run your own Facebook advertising back there. But it's connected up to your MLS, Kevin. So every one of my listings and every other listing in the MLS is all sitting back there waiting for me to just, in a couple clicks, pull the photos in, pull the descriptions in, and I've got a beautiful piece of marketing design for myself that I can easily download and go share to the socials, or print out as a flyer, or maybe even mail out as a postcard. Now, I think I have a question in here. Oh, no, Kevin's answering questions.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Anthony said, sign me up. So we're just trying to get.
All right. Well, Anthony, if you want to get signed up, man, text platform to 59559. That'll give you a chance to hop in with one of the team here and ask any particular questions. Obviously we didn't cover everything that's inside of Brivity today. I just wanted to make sure that you guys had, a hankering of some of the tools that are at your disposal, not just to go out and generate new leads. There's a few tools for that, but really to kind of turn back into the database you have and figure out, how can I get people that are already in here to maybe raise their hand, to get on my radar a little bit more. If I got a database of 10,000, any day I could go in and call randomly through that thing, Kevin. But man, we'd sure love to call some people that asked what their home was worth, or hit our market reports, or replied to some piece of advertising that we had out there. Somebody showing a little bit higher intent than just any old random person in the database. All right, brother.
All right. Thank you, Bob.
We'll see him again soon. And we'll do Brivity Happy Hour. We're going to do a recap of our built house, some of the takeaways here in just a little bit. So I'll see you in about 20 minutes, Kevin. The rest of you guys, reach out anytime. I'm Bob Stewart at place.com, Bob at Ben Kinney. Here's my phone number, 408-638-1834. Text me if you want. I don't care. Kevin, appreciate you, brother. We'll talk to you later.
All right. I'll call you in a minute.